Hey guys, so in this video I want to go through how to add React to your HTML static project using the React CDN. We're also going to use the ReactDOM CDN to be able to render out our component, but we're not using Babel or npm yarn. We're not creating a React project, and it's just a static HTML site with a little bit of React in there, mostly because we're going to be adding a button that has some more interactive features, and using React is great for this. So what we have here is some HTML, which is just rendering out this welcome page on the right. As you can see, you can enter a username, password, and we want to add a React button underneath just so we could submit that form. In this case, we're just going to have it route to a home.html page, as you can see here. And this div here is where we're going to be rendering that React button. So we're obviously going to be accessing this div using the ID. We'll use document.querySelector. So to create our component, we're going to want a button.js, or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it button.js. And we're going to put our React code in here, but first we actually need to get the CDNs. So to get that, we can actually just Google React CDN. We should get the links here. So this is the documentation for React. We want to grab both of these, so I'll copy both of those. Underneath you can see there is a minified, a .min. This is the minified version. You would use this in your production environments, but here for development we're going to use the standard version. We want to add these scripts at the bottom of our body tag. Perfect. It comes with the cross-origin keyword giving us our cause support. Alright, so we'll close out of that. So now we have the scripts, and the last script that we need to add is a script to access the button.js JavaScript code that we're going to write. So we'll go source, we'll go button.js. Perfect. So we've got everything that we need in the index file. Let's go over to the button. Okay. So since we're not using JSX here, we're going to be doing essentially what JSX does under the hood, which is access React's top-level API. So React uses a global object called React, just like that. And we can use React.createElement to access the createElement function. So we'll set that in a variable. We'll call it ReactElement. And then we'll actually write the code for our component. So const, we'll just call it button. You could do this as a class component as well, doesn't matter. And this is going to return React element, what we just created up there. Element. Okay, so create element takes 3 arguments. It takes a type, which will be button. It will then take some props, an array of props. We're going to have 2 props. So we'll define it as an object. We'll want a class name. That class name is going to be login button, and this is just what I've created down here as part of my styles. And we also want an onClick handler. So we'll define our function here as an arrow function. And we're just going to have that do something simple like take us to, we'll just say HTTP localhost, and we'll say home.html. The last argument that it takes is children, and our children here are going to be just a string that says login. So that's our component. Now we need to actually render this component. In order to do that, we're going to use the ReactDOM API, but we're going to need to create a root node first for that DOM. So we'll say const root. Now we're going to call the React DOM global object. So you have React if you want to interact with the React API, and you have React DOM to interact with the React DOM API. So React DOM dot create root, and we say document dot query selector so that we can get our button ID from the div in our index HTML file. And then we'll just say root. So we'll just use that root variable we just created, root dot render React element. Again, React element, which in this case is set to create element, returns a newly created React element. And then we pass through our button component. We save it, and you can see over here we have the login button just being created. If we click that, 500, okay. Change this to 0. And boom. Okay, goes to home. Perfect. So yeah, so all we did was we created a React element variable. We set that to the create element of the React API. We create our button, remembering that create element takes in a type prop. It will take in, sorry, a type, then takes in props, then takes in children. The documentation for all this and all the references I'll leave in the description. Really good to really dive into it, check it out. It's quite interesting to see what JSX is really doing. And then finally, we're creating a root node in the React DOM, which gets mapped. So that's the virtual DOM, gets mapped to the real DOM. And we're making the node our div that has ID of button. And then we're just rendering it inside of our create element, passing through our button component. So that's all there really is to it. I hope you found this interesting. Leave a comment if there was something that you didn't understand. More than happy to go into more detail. Again, I've linked all of the documentation just to, if you want to do some further reading, I would highly recommend that. All right, thanks guys.